Welcome to the Cox Community Spotlight, highlighting organizations, events, and people from around our local community.
Hello and welcome. My name is Thom Gossom Jr. and I am your host for this edition of Cox Community Spotlight. This is going to be a fun and informative show. I have two dynamic men here with me today that I know that you're going to really enjoy. I like them already because when I said they were dynamic, they started grinning and stuff. So, my first guest is Captain Barrington Irving, who held the world record for being the youngest person to fly solo around the world, and he has the distinction, and since this is Black History Month, of being the only African American to accomplish this feat. We were talking earlier, he's a former football player, traded in his helmet for a set of wings. He is from Miami, and I'd like for you to check out this. I'm going to read a piece from his PR piece. It says, he built a plane himself, he made his historic flight around the world, graduated magna cum laude from an aeronautical science program, and founded a dynamic educational nonprofit. Then he turned 28. Man, you did all that before you turned it. And I got one more thing to add. If you happen to be on an American flight, you get the American Way magazine and you see Magic Johnson on the cover, and there's also an article about Gordon Parks, the great photographer and director. There's also an article about Jackie Robinson, the man who integrated Major League Baseball, and there's an article about Barrington Irving. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, and I'm enjoying it.
All right. Let me, and I'd like to now introduce you to Director Rick Soria. Rick is the director of the Okaloosa STEMM Center. He is the former assistant principal at Choctaw High School, and Rick is equally as dynamic. He has won multiple honors. He's been the Teacher of the Year for the state of Florida, the Aerospace Education Foundation Teacher of the Year. He's a recipient of the Alan Shepard Technology and Education Award. And as I mentioned, he's a director of the STEM Center, which is in its first year. And STEM, of course, is science, technology, engineering, medical, what did I leave out?
Mathematics.
Wasn't that good in it anyway. So I want to thanks to both of you guys for being here. Appreciate having you both. Before we get started, let me give some thanks to some people in the community who have made this visit possible. I'd like to give a special shout out to Gulf Power, to Endyne, to Fort Walton Machining, Cox Communications, and the Delta Pi Boulay. Special thanks to you all for sponsoring Captain Irving's trip here to the Panhandle. And I'd like to also give a special thanks to the leadership of the Okaloosa school system who pulled all the logistics together to make this happen for as many students in Northwest Florida as possible. Captain Irving, you're in town for Black History Month to tell your inspiring story about how aviation changed your life. I think you told me it started in a bookstore. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this was during football season, and was on a random day that we didn't have practice, and my parents had a very small...
What position did you play?
Oh, I played fullback, a little bit of linebacker, but mostly fullback. Ran a 4.3 at the time.
Oh,
but
man.
In Miami, that's slow. But it worked out, and football was pretty much all I had on my mind. I saw it as my meal ticket to get out of the hood, quite honestly. Played ball in Liberty City, and one day I was just in my parents had a very small bookstore, and just helping to stock the shelves, and this airline pilot walks in dressed in uniform and says to me, "Hey son, have you ever thought about becoming a pilot?" I looked at him crazy. I told him I didn't think I was smart enough to do it. Then I asked him how much money he made, and after he answered that question, interest turned into passion, and here I am as an aviator because simply one guy took the chance to educate me on his career, and now I'm able to do that for so many others.
One of the quotes from you says that you were hooked on aviation, but you said there are probably millions of kids out there like me who find science and exploration amazing but lack the confidence and the opportunity to take the next step.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that, and that's part of the reason why the different projects we do, whether it's having kids build a plane or build a car or robotics and so forth, I'm sure you believe this as well. we have to empower this generation to even believe that they're capable of achieving certain accomplishments in math and science. And we don't have enough empowering activities out there for kids to believe that. And for me, it wasn't as if, oh, I needed a large presentation or anything. The moment for me when I said to myself, I can become a pilot, was when my mentor took me to the cockpit of a Boeing 777, sat me down in the cockpit, and I played with the buttons. Just simply from that, I believe I was capable of becoming a pilot.
STEM changes lives.
Oh, big time.
I agree, because that's one of the things that we notice when students come just touring the STEM Center. It's the first time some of them have ever sat down to a yoke before. It's the first time they've ever seen a straw rocket launcher or some of the apparatus that we have. And you can see the look in your eye where they're interested, but they just didn't think it was for them. But once they see that they can do it, and you've given them the opportunity to look at a new universe that they never knew existed, I think that's what changes students. I think the fact that they never thought of what was possible out there, they now see themselves as part of that possibility.
Tell us about the void. You and I talked about the void. You talked about the baby boom generation and the engineers that are retiring, and there's going to be this void for technical people.
Well, that's true. The Air Force Research Lab, who's a partner of ours, came out of the gate and came to the school district and said, listen, the baby boomer generation engineers and scientists are starting to retire. Here over the next few years, we're going to lose quite a majority of them. Our requirements for engineers and scientists is going up. It's increasing because we're into a lot of different research. The number of students that we're turning out with technical degrees, however, across America is diminishing. And that didn't seem like a big problem to me, but because I thought we can certainly get engineers from other countries. But there are some projects that are very sensitive in the Department of Defense and in some aerospace contractors that require native-born Americans for those clearances. And that's when I realized that we really needed to do something to address that shortage.
What age should we be involving these young people? What age group?
I think research will show you that if you can get them around the 4th or 5th grade as a beginning, they're still not turned off by being geeky or nerdy. Once they get past that point, if they haven't bought into it, it's too hard because their friends tell them to. They've been told they can't do it. But if you can show them the easy steps of problem solving, or if you can show them the scientific method or something like that, and they'll start liking that. It's like a puzzle. It's like a solution to something that they never dreamed of.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If you notice that the trajectory of a child is elementary school, pretty much for the most part, everyone makes the same grades, right? Middle school is where you start to see the separation. Students are starting to fail and so forth. And ironically, middle schoolers actually get the least amount of resources compared to elementary and high school students. And this is where you start to see that breakdown in the gap, and mastering certain skills and competencies just isn't there. And it's, you know, I tell kids this all the time, this whole STEM issue that we have, you know, quite honestly, it's not as if we're begging for these kids to do it, because there are so many out there in other countries that are preparing to take advantage of the opportunity and lead their country, you know, as leaders in math and science. And you know, our kids just have to honestly wake up. That's the brutal truth behind it. Because, yeah, students are coming here to get trained, but what happens? They go back to their homeland, and they're investing their knowledge into their homeland.
We need the generation of engineers and scientists that we're cultivating. We need them here. That's real homeland defense. That's really assuring continued American technological and defense supremacy. We need our students to take those spots in innovation. They're going to create the new America. They're going to create the new innovation. Anything that comes new from now on is going to come from them.
Now, we've talked about flying planes, and you've brought some gee whiz things here, I call them. But there's also the classroom,
yes.
and there's a good amount of work that goes into this.
Well, I think that what happens is when you tell a student, look, there's robotics and you can use them to do different things, or we're going to use a rocket kit and we're going to measure it. What they forget is there is some brain sweat still required. It's fun to sit at the flight simulator, and it's fun to build robots, but somewhere along the way, you have to use a scientific method to make a prediction. Somewhere along the way, you have to make a hypothesis. Somewhere along the way, you have to collect data. And if you're not collecting data and then analyzing it to some conclusion, well, that's engagement, but it's not brain sweat, and you're not really achieving anything. I think that Captain Barrington will agree that when you give students a problem that they have to serve as a team, where they have to find the solution, they have to try different methods and different techniques to try to resolve it, that's when kids really get energized.
Okay, you talk about challenges. You took 60 young people from Miami school system, took them out to the airport, and over how many days you guys built an airplane?
Yeah, so we
and you flew the airplane.
And I flew the
Tell
plane.
us about this challenge.
So I came up with the bright idea to have, take 60 kids from failing schools in Miami and challenge them to build an aircraft in 10 weeks, a kid aircraft.
Wow.
So all you got were just piles of sheet metal and different equipment.
10 weeks.
They had to figure it out. I mean, some of these kids couldn't even read a manual. And but it speaks to something that I firmly believe in, that we need more of an education, is learning with a tangible finish line, which is what you're highlighting. I mean, this provides a finish line for a child. So the same thing in building an airplane. They're not worried about the geometry. They have to learn the algebra. They have to learn, physics and so forth in the process. Their goal is to finish building that airplane. In the process, they learn those certain skills.
Exactly.
And I think the best example of that is we had one young lady who couldn't point out a 1/16 of an inch on a ruler, and now she's at Duke University as a math major on a full scholarship. So I mean, there's numerous testimonies that goes behind that project.
You have a nonprofit, Experience Aviation, and one of the things you and I talked about is that 87% of the students who've gone through your program have gone on to STEM careers and STEM education, such as the young lady just talked about.
Well, I think that that's critical to note. STEM is not everybody's cup of tea. There are going to be some people that are going to be entertainers. There are going to be some people that are going to be producers, and we need those kinds of people, please understand. But there are some kids who
You're trying to make me feel better as to why I'm not scientific.
Absolutely not. I just recognize that we wouldn't even be on TV spreading our message, and we couldn't use the video link on our computers if it wasn't for folks like that.
Gotcha.
But I am telling you this, that was not your cup of tea, and that's why you decided not to get into it. The kinds of kids that we're trying to reach are those kids. First of all, every kid can use STEM because he's going to be some part of his life where he's going to need those skills. But there are those kids who don't just want to dabble in STEM. They want to be practitioners. They're going to be the ones that are engineers. We hear a lot about these devices, for example. Somebody had to design this kit. Somebody had to find a way to manufacture this kit. Somebody had to find a way to put this all together and market it. So all those skills are important. But what I'm saying is, if we can find the kids that don't even know if they're good in math, but it turns out that they are. They don't even know if they're good at science, but it turns out that they are. Most kids don't know what they're good at. Let's give them an opportunity to see if they can find out what they're good at, and we'll take it from there.
One of the quotes I've taken from you guys is, we want to create a one-of-a-kind opportunity for students to take ownership and accomplish something amazing. And I think that's what you guys are talking about. Before we take a break, can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of this amazing stuff that we have here?
Well, absolutely. Like Captain Irving, I'm very interested in aviation, and I'm pretty focused on aviation, but STEM is quite diverse. It has a lot of different aspects to it. But one of the things that we're finding is that everything that you learn can help the other disciplines. So for example, those are wind turbine blades. Students make wind turbine blades out of plastic cardboard. That's the same things you see the political signs made of. And they make them with wooden dowels. They measure the surface area and they cut them. And the point is, the problem is, given different sets of blades and a fan and a multimeter, which combination of blades, what pitch makes the most voltage? Now listen, if you're an aero guy, that turns you on, because that's like a propeller. That's efficiency and pitch and all those things. But if you're an earth science guy, or if you're a person who's interested in alternative energy, that turbine project kind of turns you on too. If you like the use of multimeters, if you like to collect data, if you just like to measure things, there's so many different hands-on things you can do with that one project that help kids, and they like doing things with their hands. Chinese professor once told me, the mind will only learn what the bottom can endure. So if you're sitting around in class a lot, you're not going to learn a lot. But if you're out there doing things, it'll help you.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about, you're going to make another trip around the world in 2014, I think. So we're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back, and we're going to talk about how students in Northwest Florida can participate in Captain Irving's next trip around the world. We'll be back in a minute.
When 10,000 students need to be online at the same time, Cox Business is there. When the big game relies on an even bigger communications network, we're there. And when students need the same tools and opportunities no matter where they are, we're there. With a $16 billion network and ability to route 50 million calls a day, Cox Business powers education. We're there for your business, too.
In only 30 minutes a week, you can make a big impact on a child in Okaloosa County. The Okaloosa School District is recruiting mentors at all academic levels throughout the county. Studies show that students who are mentored develop self-confidence, make better grades, and improve their relationships with adults and peers. To learn more about the mentoring program or to sign up, visit okaloosaschools.com and click on the Become a Mentor link. You can make an immediate impact on a child and the community by becoming a mentor today.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks. Visit us at stoptextstoprex.org.
Okay, and welcome back to Cox's Spotlight on the Community with my guest today, Captain Barrington Irving, and Director Rick Soria of the Okaloosa STEMM Center.
Thank you.
Want to talk about, you're going to make another solo trip around the world in September, I think, 2014. Okay. And what's interesting is you talk about the aircraft, and you say that this isn't just an aircraft, it's an exploration vehicle for learning that will teach millions of kids in ways they've never been taught before, making them part of the expedition and research. How will they be part of the expedition and research?
So I must say this next project we're doing called Classroom in the Sky, it's occurring because of collaboration and partnerships. And that's how we're going to be able to revolutionize education. There's more public, private, government partnerships going on in order to make it happen. And what we're doing is we were able to get an aircraft donated by Hawker Beechcraft, a $5 million private jet, that we're transforming into a flying classroom. Well, what does that mean? We're going to be able to create a real-life magic school bus with wings and travel to all 7 continents using aviation to get us there, and then being able to not only teach from the airplane. I could call any classroom from 45,000 feet in the air, blog with kids worldwide, and when I land on all 7 continents, we'll have various expeditions lined up for us. Some with NASA, some with National Geographic, some with the University of Miami, and others, where it can be climbing Kilimanjaro and talking about high altitude breathing and the effects on the human body, to the pollution on Mount Kilimanjaro, or dealing with various situations such as biodiversity and battling the very poisonous cane toad located in Darwin, Australia. My whole goal behind this project is to create as close to a hands-on learning experience that you can virtually. So what makes this project special is this entire trip is dependent upon students and their input. So students can vote on not only the meals I eat for the day, but also how the expeditions are conducted, helping me collect data and so forth. And it's fully integrated, and we just want to be able to empower educators, we want to be able to empower students, and actually allow them to utilize math in real life scenarios that is dangerous, and show how math and science help us all live our lives and in a bunch of different ways, and show how the world is connected through math and science. And these are the type of things that we need more of in education, and more resources for educators to be able to expose their students out there.
I agree. There's no doubt about it. I think that just the excitement, if you tell your classroom that you're going to be talking to someone who's landing on 7 continents, that they're going to be flying at 45,000 feet, they're going to be doing all these explorations, and that they're so brave they're willing to let you decide what they eat. Not only teaches them about nutrition, but shows me how brave Captain Barrington is.
Okay, and so you guys, they will be able to talk to you.
Yeah, so everything is internet connection based.
Okay.
You know, we understand for today's classrooms, not every school have, you know, the greatest resources. So we've kept it simple where all you need is internet connection. There will be a downloadable app so you can make votes and so forth as relates to the different things that we're doing. And the whole purpose of this is, yes, to educate kids in math, science, reading, geography, and other areas, but also equip educators, you know, with what I call the engagement aspect of math and science, so that now you can take a real life practical situation and apply that to robotic technology, or apply that to physics and so forth and so forth. When kids are able to understand the context in which their learning is governed, oh man, it's just like building a plane.
How long is this trip?
This trip should take me about 5 months. I'm going through, oh goodness, some of the places I'm flying to, Petropavlovsk, Russia, surrounded by nothing but volcanoes, and I mean all the math that goes into avoiding obstacles, especially if it's a whiteout outside, and you know, aircraft performance to, oh goodness, going to underground tombs, highlighting solar-powered aircraft. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Spaceport America, innovations that's happening right here in this country, you know, that students have no clue what's going on.
Well, I can tell you that the students here would be in Northwest Florida would be very interested, but in Okaloosa County, we have rigorous STEM programs in every school. It doesn't matter if you're elementary, middle, or high. All of those schools have rigorous programs. So I know, I mean, I can't speak for the school district, obviously, but I can tell you from the STEM Academy, we would be very interested in partnering so that we could track if you can imagine in our flight lab having a map of the world and putting a little pin wherever you are and having the students get excited because they know it's time for the next Captain Irving transmission or for them to vote for something with the app that they've downloaded. So I can see that there's great potential for student engagement and for students dreaming outside of the world that they're used to. And I think that's the biggest thing you can do as an educator. If you can get a kid to think in a way he's never thought before, if you can get him to picture himself doing something that he hadn't thought of, once you ignite that desire to learn and make them lifelong learners, you just have to keep them on track. You become the sage, you become the guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage. You want them to be motivating themselves, and all you want to do is keep directing them toward the path.
I'd like to, and you talk about dreams, and I always say that dreams fueled by hope then can become reality and can lead to success. And I think what you're talking about, how you've gone about things, you're not a rich man, I assume. You have done this. And I know that because you and I talk, but you've done this through bartering and through being insistent and to identifying your goal and going after. Can you talk a little bit about how you've gone about this?
Oh, goodness. Even with the first flight around the world, I knew that if I didn't have a plane, people wouldn't believe I'd be flying around the world. And no aircraft manufacturer wanted to rent me an aircraft or lease one or let me borrow one. So I'll never forget. I said, well, if I went after all the different equipment manufacturers, you know, and I'll never forget driving from Miami to Mobile, Alabama, and with only enough money to rent a car, put gas in it, and buy a 12-inch sub, and that was it for the day. And, you know, sleep in the car, and showed up on a Monday morning with a nice business suit on and said, hi, my name is Barrington Irving. I'd like to see if your engine is good enough for my airplane. Didn't own an airplane, but it got me through the door. And then I was able to finagle my way to meet the CEO of this engine manufacturer. I only had 5 minutes. Within those 5 minutes, I was honest with him, and he just simply said, thank you for coming. Got a phone call a few weeks later. They sponsored an engine worth $83,000. Wow. I learned a lot from rejections. I've learned a lot from, you know, what it takes to truly collaborate. I think there are a lot of folks in education, as well as private enterprise, who want to collaborate more but they're not really too sure of how to do it. And how to do it in a way where it aligns to the academic standards, how to do it in a way where it's a good thing for the community and will inspire others. And it's my mentor always said to me, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and it's something that I'm a firm believer in.
I couldn't agree more with the captain, because when we've gone to our different partners, one of the recurring themes that I hear is, I didn't know we could help you. And more often than not, we don't get help because we don't ask for it. And I agree with rejection. Every time we write a grant and it gets rejected, I'm thinking, well, that's one less. I'm closer now than I was before. And if you just keep writing those grants and keep visiting people, and what they want to see is the end game. If you just go in there and say, I've got this dream, we all have dreams,
Right.
but show them how you plan to use the resources that you're asking for. Show them what the end game is. Have them come and see what you're doing. Once they see that, then they see the purpose.
We've got a couple more minutes here. And from what I hear you guys say, it sounds like to me that maybe there's a collaboration coming on sometime down the road here. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
I can't speak for Okaloosa County School District, but I can
Absolutely.
speak for the students at my school and my center, and we would be delighted to partner with Captain Barrington.
What kind of things would you guys be looking at doing, you think? And I know I'm asking you on the spot here.
Well, I think it's pretty easy, because the one thing that we seem to have in common is education, and the second thing is aviation. So I would like to see us exchanging content and techniques and methodologies, and also we'd like to be a part of the Fly Around the World trip in 2014. I think tracking the captain as he flies would be great.
I couldn't agree more, and it's like we used to say in football, right? What's success? When preparation meets opportunity, and I've spent the past few years since flying around the world transitioning from being a pilot to becoming an educator, and learning the needs of educators as well as the needs of students, and understanding, well, how can I be innovative? How can I be of benefits to communities, all throughout the nation? Yes, it's great, through certain partnerships, I'll have access to impacting this major metropolitan area and so forth. But to not forget other entities, like here in the Panhandle, that we can impact in various forms and various manners. That's the only way we're going to be able to tackle this problem.
Okay. I'm going to have to wrap us out here in just a minute, but I want to say something. I want to follow up on something you said, and I want to say this to all the students out there, but in particular because I've been one and the captain's been one, and that's to all you young athletes out there. And there are things that are as interesting as athletics. I'm not trying to talk you out of athletics at all, because it's great and it's wonderful, and I played it a long time. I got the bad knee to show you for it. But follow the captains that lead, and there are other things that you can be interested in. There are other paths and avenues to success. Let's wrap this up. I want to thank both of you guys for being here. It's been absolutely wonderful. If you're interested in any further information on Captain Irving or on the STEM Center, I think we're going to put those websites up. My website's up there if you got any other ideas for the show. And I want to thank you for watching the Spotlight on the Community. And I want you to always remember what I always say when I close out a show, and that is, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Make somebody feel good. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Like that.
Thanks for watching the Cox Community Spotlight. Join us next month when we highlight other organizations, events, and people from around our local community.